Hi, it's Makara from More Prana Gardens. Today I am going to put in a worm tube. If you need information about worm bins, you're going to have to check the description box. I'll put a link for the video I did for that down there. Now, first thing I'm going to do, I've already picked my spot. I have all my materials around me, but I see some grass. And it's not much, and it's going where I want to go, so I'm just going to pull that out real quick. Alrighty. So this is my worm tube. This is a super low-tech worm tube. You can get a 4-inch PVC, cut it to about 15, 18 inches, drill holes in the bottom half of that are big enough for worms to get through. And these are compost worms, not earthworms. And that's that. But if you don't have that, you use what you got. What I got is this. I've also seen people do a 5-gallon bucket. Same thing, drill holes in the bottom half, but this already has nice holes, so. This was a worm tube that was in, well, I would say the kitchen garden, but let's just call it the basil jungle right now, because that's how it is. And with the extreme heat that we had this summer, worms die over 95, compost worms, and we had weeks over 100. So they live in the soil, but in the very, very, very top, so I wasn't sure how protected they were. We also had some torrential rains, so I suspect that they are gone. Also, I haven't been feeding them. But, you know. So this is a new garden that I'm setting up. This is the medicinal garden. Here's our little marshmallow plant that's going to be 5 feet tall in a couple of years. And I'm just going to dump out what's in here and see what we have. Alright, well, I set them up in something that used to have a pot in it, or a plant in it, and I guess they didn't make it very far after that torrential rain we had. So that's all broken down, that's fine. There are soldier fly larvae, also known as gross, eating an avocado. And I'm going to set this back up for worms. So I'm going to find my spot. I want them to go here. This used to be my compost bin area, so I'm hoping it's not too bad. Yeah, it's not hard soil. This is a hori-hori. Serrated on one side, nice and sharp on the other, scooped, and they usually have measurement markings. These are awesome tools. You can cut, dig, whatever you need. So I'm not going to go real deep because I only want it to be buried to about here. This is North Texas. This is, I mean, it's reconditioned because it had the compost bin sitting on it, but this is clay, so sorry if it takes me a little bit to get into it. Now, the reason for putting worms in a system like this instead of in a bin or a bathtub or whatever else you might do is that, if you remember from the worm bin video, we have different levels of worms. We have these little guys that live at the top. These are small red worms, and they eat decaying material. And then we have the earthworms below them, and they're a little bigger, and they're not red. They're usually white or yellow or some kind of pale. And then we have the deep worms, the ones who know where the spice is. And they are huge. They look like baby snakes. So this is just the red worms that we're doing, the little wrigglers. This is what happens to a bamboo toothbrush about 6 months after you put it in your compost bin, apparently. Not much. But it was funny that I found that down there. Alright, let's see. Yeah, that ought to be just fine. So these little shallow worms, maybe a little more, they're going to eat this straw. They're going to eat any leaves that fall in the fall. They're going to eat what I feed them. Yeah, that's nice. And they're not going to go real far from here. And that's fine, because remember, the earthworms and the ones who know where the spice is, I don't remember what they're called, so I just call them the ones who know where the spice is. They are going to come up and take what these guys make and distribute it farther, and so will other microorganisms and little buggins and things that live down there. So we're not worried about how far these guys can take it. They're just here to kick it all off. So I'm going to take some of my worms. Look at this beautiful baby. Alright, so I'm going to take some handfuls of worms. And yes, I do this barehanded. Wash your hands after you mess with worms and chickens and things. And wash them very well. Alright, so I put them and some of their material that they were in. Ooh, that's a big one. Down in here. And then these guys are pretty simple. They don't need that dry bedding because they're not confined to this. They're going to spread out. So their moisture level's not as urgent and all that stuff. I'm just trying to pick out a few more. All right. Nothing is as urgent for these guys as it is if you have a bin, because they can move around. They can go out of there to find food. They can go down into the ground when it gets colder or hotter. And of course, you know, they don't go very deep, but something, right? To feed these guys, oh, I don't want to give them my pretty buck meat. Hang on a second. I'm just going to grab this basil back here that I just keep around for pollinators. A little bit of that. And I'm going to tear off a little bit of a comfrey leaf. All right, so some lettuce leaf basil that I just grabbed from a plant that's right there. A little bit of comfrey because we like soil nutrition. I'm gonna throw a little bit of this back on there. Don't need to. This is what was in there before. Alrighty, and then we're just gonna put some dry material on top, some straw or hay, and this is insulation for them, and it covers whatever food. Any kitchen scraps can go in here. Anything that you would put in your regular worm bin can go in here. I'm just going to give them a little bit more straw, and I am just scraping this straw off of the garden bed. This bed is about to get some beets planted into it when they have more leaves. They're still a little young right now. And then I'm going to come back over and fully, I'll probably lay some compost leaves around, and then I will wood chip over this whole area to give it good insulation for the winter and to keep it holding water. All right, so this is just about done. I put the straw in there, and last thing it needs is a hat. And the only purpose of this hat is to keep the rain out. And some critters. I am sure a raccoon could figure out how to get this off if it wanted to. It's not, you know, it's not difficult. But you just need something to keep the rain out as the primary purpose. That's all. Every week or two or so, I can come out here, toss some food in here. If I don't, it's not too detrimental because they have stuff to eat. That's it. I leave these in place for 6 months after I set up a new bed, and then I let them move on to a new spot. Pretty simple. So, do a thumb thing, hit the subscribe bar, and ring the bell if you want notifications. Later, y'all.